Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or the guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hi there. Welcome to the 26th episode of A Couple Takes on MS. Hi, this is Dan Digman.
And this is me, Jennifer Digman, Dan's wife. And if you don't remember, both Dan and I have been living with multiple sclerosis for nearly 20 years.
I was going to say, I just celebrated my 18th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Hooray.
Happy anniversary.
2,560 days living with this disease.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? Happy anniversary to me. After 18 years, I'm slowly catching up to you at 20.
Yes.
I'll let you have that seniority because
Thank you.
This isn't a competition. However,
speaking of competition, have you been watching anything good on TV lately?
well, I think probably for the last week and a half, I think there's a thing called the Winter Olympics.
The Winter Olympics. Bum, 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 bum. Sorry, that was my weak attempt to do the Olympics.
But that was solid. Make a joyful noise.
Make a joyful noise, absolutely.
See, but yes, it has been the Olympics, and I think that what we wanted to talk about today and go with us on this is just thinking about people living with multiple sclerosis and comparing them to Olympic athletes.
And I don't know that we're comparing ourselves to Olympic athletes in so much as just an Olympic athlete and a person living with multiple sclerosis are surprisingly similar.
But there's also differences, and I think
absolutely.
it's like I think just we're obviously we are not on even playing fields, even things. But I mean, just comparing some of the similarities and differences where things are we're the same, but in other senses it's better to be an Olympic athlete, but in other senses it's better to be a person with multiple sclerosis, if you can believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what was one of the first things you thought of where a person with MS and an Olympic athlete are somewhat similar?
Well, I think that Olympic athletes, and this is the one thing is, truly, we all need to strive to be in the best shape of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Every moment of an Olympic athlete or a person with MS, we have to be in our best shape and our best condition. And we really need to try our hardest. And so I think that that's a similarity. The one that popped into my head it was kind of a funny thing, and I'm sure those of us living with MS will appreciate it. Olympic athletes, it depends if you're a gymnast or a figure skater or even someone in skeleton or bobsled.
What's been your favorite game?
And so far, I mean, I totally enjoy skeleton and even like curling. I mean, it's the importance of balance. How important balance is with MS. But the balance of not just physical, like can you stand on one leg or can you maintain your balance, but the balance of your life. For people in the Olympics, they're not just athletes 100% of the time. I mean, they have families, they have commitments, and so people with MS, we have to maintain our balance. Literally and figuratively.
I was going to say it is that's a great point. Just to go beyond. Well, you're super smart that way. I think, but yeah, it's just to make it because we always talk about the balance in terms of standing, vertigo, and everything that we have. But I mean, when you're talking about the balance, just with your life and balancing things, and maintaining that focus.
Yeah, and that focus. And I think people that really help Olympic athletes and people with MS maintain our focus is our team. And I know, like, ice skaters, again, going back to them, or just any of the individual skiing events, they're not necessarily on a team, but a team is important for the athletes and for those of us dealing with chronic illness, teammates like
Well, like your primary care doctor, your neurologist,
your physical
physical,
therapist.
yeah, physical therapist and everything. So I think it's like, when we talk about our team, our family is our team.
Our family, absolutely.
Because yeah, the Olympic athletes have trainers. I mean, in many senses, we have trainers too, on certain levels, and I think that's where maybe that helps too in thinking. Because I've often said that I think of living my life with this disease is like a competition. I often compare it to football because that comes around every year, whereas the Olympics have to wait at least every other year.
Every 2 years.
Yes, and so it's that team that you have and you build, and that's where you have, and I think that's the interesting thing or similarity in that you build your team, you have a solid team, but if you have a weak teammate, like you have a doctor that's not giving you what you need, or a physical therapist or a therapist, whoever,
Right.
cut them and draft somebody new and bring somebody else in who's going to help you, because I think that's the big thing is we have to look at ourselves as people with multiple sclerosis are like people with
Competing in the Olympics.
It's like we're the ones who know what we want to achieve greatness for ourselves, greatness for others, and so
we need to be at peak levels always. So we need to really count on our members of our team to help us get there.
yes. So who's going to help you maximize and achieve your greatness?
And I think like Olympic athletes, and I'm thinking of, we were watching downhill skiing just recently, and the number of people that were standing outside in the freezing cold cheering on these athletes. I think those of us living with MS, we all have a community of people supporting us, whether that's our family or our friends or our doctors or even online communities. I mean, the level of support we've seen online, with the Facebook communities or any sort of Twitter community, just where other people with MS can support us. I feel like, we don't have to be bobsledding to have people cheering for us, but we're fortunate that we can find that and we're not alone.
Yeah, and I think that, when you're dealing with multiple sclerosis, we had talked that there's estimated like 2.2 million people worldwide living with the disease, meaning that MS is pretty well represented worldwide.
Yeah.
Thereby then think of that and comparing with the Olympics. I mean, pretty much every country, for the most part, competes in the Olympics, so they're represented there
and
too.
Competes with MS. That's a good point, babe. Just how prevalent the Olympics are and how prevalent this neurological disease is. So I think that's a good comparison. But like Olympic athletes, people with MS are always in training. I mean, we're always trying to give our best self. And that's one of those important things that we have to remember. I mean, sure, I imagine that, the Olympics happen, like you pointed out, every 2 years. So maybe people aren't always in their peak shape, but they've got their eye on the prize. And so they are training and they don't slack. And that's how we, as people living with MS, have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, it's like, because obviously, yeah, after the Olympics are over, maybe take a day or two off. But I mean, to qualify for the Olympics, you have to win all of these like regional, national, international, world competitions. So you always have to be performing. And so really, like Olympic athletes, we as people living with multiple sclerosis, we truly get no rest. And I think anytime, if we take breaks, it's going to take that much more effort and work to get back to that peak level.
But like the athletes, we all, people with MS or with Olympic athletes, we all know the sweetness of victory. And you all out there know, I imagine, what we're talking about. When I'm able to turn on a light switch and reach up and get it, or if I'm able to do a little extra exercise one day, I know how good that feels, or brush my teeth from start to finish all by myself. Those little successes, I claim those and I embrace those. So I think victory is sweet for us all.
And I think that's where, just like then with the victory, I mean, with the Olympics, with life with MS, I mean, with every battle, every competition you have, you're not going to win them all. I think that's it's, and I think that's where, like Olympic athletes, when we don't win, if we were striving for the gold and we got fourth place and didn't medal or something, you brush yourself off and you try again. And I think that, because there will be days where you can't turn off the bathroom light, get your arm up to do
Right.
that. Or, there will be days that I just have to wear a shirt with a tie, not button the top button because my fingers won't let me do that.
Right.
There's always tomorrow, and so you don't win them all, but you keep your eye on the prize.
What was that on Wide World of Sports? The thrill of
Victory in the agony of defeat.
that's so apropos to life with MS. But what I think is interesting is where Olympic athletes and people with MS are different.
Yes, how because we've drawn on the comparison of
Certainly
how there's similarities, but there are quite a few differences too.
Quite a few. And my first thought when Dan and I were talking about the Olympics and MS, the first one that I thought, and it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, is that those of us with multiple sclerosis can take steroids. And it's not wrong.
You don't have a drug test to say that you can't take steroids. I mean, if we had, pretty much, if you went to an Olympic, athletes to say how many have used steroids while in competition, you probably wouldn't have a lot of people raising their arms. Whereas you ask people with multiple sclerosis, how many of you have used steroids? I would be hard pressed to say that. I'd say at least how many? 70, 80%, maybe, however many. I mean, that was one of the first things I ever had before I was even put on a disease-modifying medication. I was, give me some prednisone, doc.
And those steroids help get you through the tough moments of an exacerbation or a flare-up. So unlike Olympic athletes, MS people can say, yep, I use steroids and, I'm not addicted, but we know the benefits and we're able to take them.
And I think, one of the things, we talked about, people get no rest, but I think that it's just the reality that, we're talking Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics.
Right.
Our disease knows no season.
No, it knows no season, and it doesn't give you an opportunity to all right, you compete now, wait a couple years, and then the MS will attack you again. Or, I mean, this is something we live with every day. And Olympic athletes, they can say, yes, I want to compete in the Olympics, and none of us had a choice in competing in the battle of multiple sclerosis. So I think that's a difference, and that's where, that's something where I don't want to say we're more tough than Olympic athletes.
I think that's the reality is as far as differences, Olympic athletes chose to compete in the Olympics and do all this.
They didn't just choose, they aspired. I mean, a lot of people, they dream, someday I'm going to be an Olympic athlete. And I just don't know if I've ever heard anyone, here I go tongue-in-cheek again, say, ooh, I can't wait until I get multiple sclerosis.
Someday, if I do
Fingers
everything just
crossed,
right, I will have multiple sclerosis, and I will be the best at it.
The best ever. But see, that's another place where we're like Olympic athletes, because I think a lot of us want to say, I want to tackle this disease the best ever. I want people to say, Dan, you make multiple sclerosis look good, or you make it look like it's easy, and you know deep down it's not. But I think Olympic athletes want to make it look easy.
Well, that's the one of the big things, and I think we've made these comparisons with just athletes. Period. We look at the athletes on the course, in the ice skating rink, everything just nailing, your triple axel, all these other things, and they make it look easy and graceful. We're not there with them day in, day out in the trainings where they fall down and are on the ice.
Yeah.
So if we go out or we're somewhere in the public and do a transfer, make it look easy, or we make it look easy to have multiple sclerosis,
Right.
it's like that's our game time performance.
Yeah.
People aren't there seeing everything that happens behind the scenes. Like, just even like when you're out in public and you're maneuvering your chair and everything, and people are just like, "Oh, you're such a great driver," and your comment to them is, "You should see the walls at my house."
Well, and it's also, and I'm sure there's many other out there, I'm sure you can relate. I've been in this wheelchair for 15 years. So you telling me, oh, you really drive that wheelchair good. Sometimes and I won't because I don't want to be rude like this, but sometimes I just want to smack somebody and say, if I was driving a car and I didn't get in an accident, would somebody say, oh, boy, Jennifer, you're a good driver? I mean, maybe, but this has been my transportation for 15 years. So of course I'm a pretty good driver.
Well, and I guess taking it another level then,
Please.
because this is your mobility. This is how you get around. Think if you would say, "Boy, you walk really well.
That's
You're
a good
such
point.
a great walker."
Unless you're a supermodel, I don't know if you really want somebody to be staring at you telling you, ooh, you're a good walker.
Yeah, and so I think those are things where, as far as the Olympic athletes, and I think that's the other thing where it's, unlike the Olympic athletes, a lot of our battles we do in private.
We do in private.
We do the competition that it's like nobody else sees, and I think that's probably for a good thing, for better or worse.
For better or for worse. And I know we had our friend Steve over here just a little bit ago, and he was lauding praise on you for how you transfer me and how tough and strong you are, because you are tough and strong. And it's just, that's the reality of your life. And I think sometimes, nobody's going to give us a gold medal, those of us living with MS. As much as I think you deserve one, Dan, I don't think you would want one because you're just living your life. And I don't know if any of us living with MS think, oh, I deserve a gold medal because I woke up today or I took a shower and went to work. But sometimes I think we kind of all maybe not deserve a gold medal, but we certainly deserve a gold star and recognition of how we're overcoming this disease.
Well, I think that is a huge difference, is that as an Olympic athlete, you train and you compete. You want people and you want people to recognize that, and not that we want people to recognize that, but in some senses, wouldn't it be nice if people realized how good we all are doing, in the battles we're facing on a daily basis, and not to make us feel better about ourselves, but just that formal recognition to say, you guys are doing a great job.
Yeah, and I think that as humble as you are, Dan, I think if people did recognize you and say you're doing a great job, I think you would be very much like, oh, don't worry, or, don't say that.
But that's what we do.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are plenty of people out there listening that know exactly what we're talking about, where it's like, this is our reality. I drive a wheelchair pretty well because I don't run over people's toes at the grocery store, or you're pretty awesome, strong because you can transfer me into bed at night. And we take those little successes, we just do it. That's our nature. But sometimes it would be nice if somebody recognized us. But at the same point, like, we would just be like, yeah, no, don't worry about it, you know?
Well, and you heap the praise on everybody else who got you there.
Yeah.
But I think that's the big thing, and really where we're arriving, talking about how people with multiple sclerosis are similar to Olympic athletes and the other places where there's measurable differences. I do think that the one thing is truly all of us living with multiple sclerosis, we all deserve a gold medal. In the sense that this disease is so different for every one of us.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's a good point. I think of it, like we don't need a medal, but we're all living with this frustrating, frightening, mysterious disease, and maybe if we all took a second and just stood back and realized that we deserve medals for being able to move on.
And I think that's where you just take it all the way top, or all the way to the top, in that we all deserve a gold medal. Just think about this. We always talk that multiple sclerosis affects everybody differently.
It's like a snowflake disease, which is perfectly appropriate for the Winter Olympics. That no two snowflakes are alike, no two cases of multiple sclerosis are alike.
And so then pulling that further when you're talking about athletics and sports and things, everyone, in many senses, we're in a league all our own. It's like when I used to run, obviously, yeah, I was competing. There were other people. You break it down to the entire race, your age group. But at the end of the race, I found my success more on how did it reflect on my time, my personal record,
Right.
my personal best. And so really, are we living with, those of us living with multiple sclerosis, it's not comparing myself to another person with MS. It's comparing myself to me and how am I doing based on my disease and dealing with it. Thereby then, do we not all deserve gold medals because we're all first in our class?
Yeah,
Or am I just smoking that?
no, I think that's a really good point, is that we all deserve recognition, and we need to appreciate and recognize our successes. As I've said, before, when we can do the smallest thing, that may possibly be a huge thing. If I can tie my shoes myself, some days I think I'm a gold medal athlete because I haven't been able to do that, and look at me doing it. So I think we have to appreciate and recognize every success and every accomplishment. And like Olympic athletes, we just have to keep trying and not giving up and being inspired to represent ourselves and our disease as a champion. Like Olympic athletes from the United States are celebrating, and they're proud of the fact that they're from the United States. Well, I think all of us living with MS need to be proud of the fact that we're in this strong community, people living with multiple sclerosis. Does that make sense, Dan?
You're
Or am I?
blowing. No, or are you smoking? No, this is.
I don't know.
But you think about that. Is that where, on some levels, is it like? I won't say that's our own group, but yeah, when we're talking about our team and our doctors and our personal care physicians, are those of us, every one of us living with multiple sclerosis, we're all part of the same team.
Well, that's
And that
a nice.
and that level, it's just like, and so there's going to be people that are winning gold medals or that are getting the recognition.
Right.
But it's just like that's just part of the thing, and some of us don't. I don't know. Now we're just kind of.
Well, no, but I think the idea, maybe it makes it a little easier to live with MS, is to know you're not alone. That there are, what is it, like 2 million or
2.2 million, and that's just like diagnosed or
Reported.
people with multiple sclerosis. But then think how much bigger that gets when you start including all of the caregivers, all of the physicians, all of the doctors, all the
family
researchers,
members.
the family members. I
Right.
mean, that's where I think we all are backed by some pretty solid, strong people to help us in our fight in competing.
Absolutely, and we're not alone. And you need to reach out. We need to reach out because the community is much smaller when you realize how many people are out there on your side that want to share their story with you, that want to hear your stories. So I think that's really important. And this was a good conversation just to talk about the Olympics and the athletes, and just that we're pretty darn special and athletic, those of us living with multiple sclerosis. And so, baby, I would give you a gold medal because you're an excellent representation of someone living and doing their best, thriving with multiple
Well, you are
sclerosis.
too kind, and likewise, I return it to you that you, Jennifer, deserve a gold medal for everything you do to represent. And I'll turn it over to everybody who's listening. You deserve a gold medal whether you have multiple sclerosis, whether you're a caregiver, doctor, whoever.
Family member, friend.
You
We
deserve-
need you, and you need a gold medal, and you need to recognize that.
Because it's like we're all in a league of our own. And so thank you all. And I guess, when the Olympics are over, closing ceremonies, our fight continues. And likewise, the Olympic athletes, their quest will continue for the next season.
And that's the thing you have to remember is there's always tomorrow. So
And-
keep fighting because there's better days and a bright future for us all.
So thank you all again for taking the time to check in with us today. This has been Dan Digman.
And Jennifer Digman.
And this has been a couple takes on MS. And thank you to Blue Giraffe Kid for composing the theme music for our show. And thanks to MS&Me Radio Network for having us here to include our voices with such a great lineup. Till next time, take care.